is the Orange Zone, sponsored by Apex Entertainment.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Orange Zone podcast. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston, and we are two Syracuse sports reporters with a whole lot to talk about today. The breaking news, Trebor Peña, wide receiver one, named a captain in December, has decided to enter the transfer portal. There is not a lot in this era of name, image, and likeness that surprises me. I was shocked.
Stunned.
I mean, blown away.
Yeah. I don't think either of us saw this coming. I'm not sure anybody had real rumblings that this was coming. If you told me to put money on a Syracuse player, a notable Syracuse player that'd be hitting the portal this spring, one of my last choices would be Trebor Peña. Broke this morning, 24/7 Sports, first with the news. Matt Zenitz, Mike McAllister sort of put things out there on Tuesday morning about this. I do have a couple thoughts. I was stunned to begin with, and now reflecting on it for a few hours, I do think there were some signs in the last few days that could have led to this, but we'll get into all of it. Certainly, sort of the biggest blow in the Fran Brown era. I was thinking about this as I was putting these notes together for this episode. I'm not sure that Fran Brown in his head coaching tenure at Syracuse has dealt with a portal loss like this.
That was so harsh. Peña was a second-team All-ACC selection in 2024 after a breakout season. He is a New Jersey native, a three-star recruit out of high school. He initially committed to Temple, and Syracuse was his only Power 5 offer. So it is crazy, I think, to see the way that the tables turn. He was here through the Dino Babers transition, and he decided to ultimately stay with Fran Brown. Last year, awesome season for him, 84 catches, 941 yards, and 9 touchdowns, which led the team. That's what ultimately led to him being named as a captain, and really going into it, again, he was wide receiver one, and he was one of the pillars of this Syracuse football team heading into 2025.
Yeah, I think why this one hurts so much for Syracuse fans is some of those reasons you just listed, right? He's a New Jersey kid. He's Northeast. He originally committed to the program with Babers. Back, it was his only Power 5 offer. Some of his other offers, like you said, at Temple, I think an Army was in there. Just not Power 5 teams. He seemed to be Syracuse born and bred the whole way, but obviously in this era of college football, money talks, and we'll probably never find out exactly what his reasonings were for leaving. We did reach out to the spokesperson for Syracuse football today, and the team essentially has no comment on this development. So he was Kyle McCord's pretty much favorite target last season. His 84 catches last year were a team high for the SU offense that, of course, ranked #1 nationally in passing. He had at least 5 catches in 11 games, multiple touchdowns in 3 games. He was going to be the guy. There's no real other way to put that. I mean, we'll go through it. Syracuse has a deep wide receiver room heading into 2025, but he was the top name on that list.
It is important to note that he hasn't announced it himself yet, but it, obviously is being heavily and widely reported. Listen, we are honest enough with all of you to say that we are not exactly sure what the reason behind this is. I think that's why it's so shocking. But I think you have to always obviously think about money as a factor. There are already, and again, these are just rumblings, so just know it is just rumblings, but there are already things and rumors out there about him going to Miami and things to that effect. I don't know where he'll end up yet. I also am seeing, and I will kind of quote Steve Infanti here, the sports director from News Channel 9. He said he spoke to a couple of sources who essentially said that Peña was not, being underpaid and he was being well compensated. Exactly what that means, it's hard to say, but I would not be surprised, and again, this is my estimate, to find out that he's making over $1 million or close to $2 million. I mean, you don't think so?
No.
You think way lower?
Yes.
How low?
I don't have a numbers estimate, but if some of the top quarterbacks in the portal are around $1 million, there's no way Trebor Peña is around $1 million. I'm just so sorry.
And you think that's why he's leaving is because he thinks he can get that number or get something close to it?
I actually have some thoughts that don't relate to money that I guess we'll get into. But I did also see what Stephen Fonte put out there. The minute I read it, I sort of immediately questioned whether that meant well compensated for Syracuse, well compensated for the ACC.
That's a good point.
Well compensated in the scheme of college football as a whole. I guess what does well compensated, what are we, referring to as comparison there?
That's a good point, because I think well compensated at Syracuse football, have to be honest, compared to other places, there is a gap there. Even though I think Syracuse football was able to, pay their players. I don't know. It's like funny to me. I'm like, thinking about McCord and the numbers he made, or at least what was reported, I'm like, that's well compensated.
Yeah.
Like that.
No, I'm sure he was well compensated. Fran Brown sort of made a big deal in the winter around that time frame in December at the dart party when he named him a captain. That NIL event basically made a big deal that Syracuse sort of ponied up the money to keep him. So I don't doubt that he was well compensated. But again, does that sort of take on a different meaning at different schools? Quite possibly.
Well, if it's not about the money for you, or you think there's something else at play here, what do you think that something else is?
So I have a couple things here. So first of all, like I said, I was pretty surprised when I saw this come out. And then you reflect a little bit on what's been happening with Syracuse football in the past few days. Well, Saturday, of course, was the spring game. We saw Peña out there. He did have a couple of targets. He had, I believe, one catch, like a sort of a, I guess maybe he was out of bounds, but he caught a pass from Jakari Williams on one of the first drives of the game. He was in a white no contact jersey. I thought that was strange. Sort of immediately, I kind of thought it was just like, we're going to protect our veterans. We're not going to let anybody get hit that shouldn't get hit. Okay, fine. I can excuse that for Trebor Peña, who is essentially your top wide receiver. Looking back on that now, maybe that was a little strange. Media availability for Syracuse football was supposed to continue into today, Tuesday, and Wednesday of this week after the spring game. On Sunday, we were notified that it was being bumped up to only Monday afternoon. Is it possible that they knew the Peña portal news was incoming and a Tuesday morning break, and they wanted to sort of wrap things up ahead of that? Yes, that's possible. I do not know that to be true,
likely.
But it's certainly interesting. Secondarily, yesterday, the last spring football media practice that was open and available to a media viewing was sort of a strange one. I can't lie to anyone. It was probably the strangest one I've seen of the season. I kind of just took it as, okay, the spring game was on Saturday. Maybe there's just some strange things that have developed after that. Of course, Michael Johnson Jr. in the quarterback room also hit the portal yesterday. So I kind of just chalked it up to a bunch of those things. By strange practice, I mean that so for media viewing of these practices, we sort of go in early at like 4 o'clock. We're able to watch a few periods of practice that they permit, kind of watch 11 on 11, can't film it, film some of it. Then we actually leave for around like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and we come back for the media interviews. They don't let us watch the second like 3 quarters of practice. When we came back yesterday for the media interviews, we were speaking to the special teams coordinator and the recruiting staff. So like the attention was kind of off of the normal main people. Fran Brown was not talking. None of the position coaches besides the special team guys were talking. But the team was gathered in sort of around in Ensley for a long time. Maybe I want to estimate 30, 40 minutes. They do that on occasion if they have a speaker or something. But yesterday, it stuck out to me just how long that they were sort of gathered around. I believe Fran was talking. You could sense that something was happening. But again, I chalked it up to, well, the spring game was 2 days ago. Johnson Jr. isn't here anymore. I'm sure there's things to talk about. Then when we were allowed inside to speak to some of the players, yesterday I spoke to Jakari and Demetrius Samuel. Players leaving practice were visibly, I guess, disgruntled in a way that I hadn't really seen before. There just was some visible, you could tell that whatever went on inside that meeting was alarming to some. Was that Trebor Peña? I don't know. Did it have a factor in Trebor Peña's decision? I don't know. Was that sort of the team breaking that news? I don't know any of this. I'm just saying I haven't seen kind of, I guess, uneasiness like I saw yesterday.
No, it's worth noting your observations because obviously you're generally speaking the person on the ground for us. Here's the other thing. When you think about, well, why could he have made this decision? We obviously know money is a part of it. The other thing is, how long have we openly and honestly been saying that we're not sure what Ricky Collins is going to be able to bring to the table?
Yeah.
How long have we been openly and honestly discussing Syracuse's really, really tough schedule? When you put those two things together and you think about the fact that Trebor Peña was wide receiver 1 here, is it possible that he thought there was a possibility he wouldn't be getting as many touches or wouldn't be able to show off his talent in a way that at another school he'd be able to, which in turn could lead to more NFL looks for him?
Yeah, that was my next point, essentially. I mean, could it be NIL and could it be money? And sure, does that all probably factor into it, especially this late? Yes, and I would almost go out on a limb to say I'm sure that he's getting quite monetarily compensated wherever he's going to go. But to do it this late after the spring game, like I know that Trebor Peña has not announced it yet, And maybe Fran Brown and his staff are making a full court press today to try to keep him. I just want to say that I doubt that. I don't think your team captain and your leader in receiving last year enters the portal and is kind of unsure about things. To me, that means he knows he's going, and he might know where he's going as well. I agree. I don't know if it signals sort of a disapproval of maybe the quarterback situation. Maybe he's unsure about Collins. Maybe he's just unsure what's going on in the quarterback room as a whole. Maybe he has seen some adjustments to kind of Jeff Nixon's offensive scheme relating to Collins slotting in there that he doesn't like and he doesn't think are going to be particularly productive for his skill set. I don't know. You mentioned the schedule. Yeah, there's that too. As we talked about many a time, this is one of the hardest schedules in the entire country for Syracuse football next year. So to say that isn't a factor, I think we'd be lying. I don't know. That's all pure speculation. Trebor Peña has not said any of these things. It could be purely a dollar sign from some other school. Which other schools in the conversation? You mentioned 24/7 Sports has already reported that Miami should be on the radar there. They're looking for a big receiver in the portal. Guess if you can't beat him on the field, beat him in the portal. Had to make the joke. Another thing that comes to mind is Syracuse's wide receivers coach last season, Ross Douglas, is now at Oregon. Maybe there was some sort of communication there if he liked Douglas. I don't know. We'll just have to see what pans out. But I think it could be a combination of things. Do I think that this would have happened if Kyle McCord was still here? No.
That is a really important thing to say because I do think that that is true. I think whatever quarterback they ended up with here at Syracuse was really going to matter. And to me, you know, Peña leaving in part signifies that he's at least unsure about what the future holds with the quarterback situation and Ricky Collins' ability. And listen, there are really, you know, two sides and kind of two ways to look at this, as there always are when it comes to the NIL debacles. On the one hand, this is a kid that, you know, like you said, only had, one Power 5 offer coming out of college. To make it this far, of course he's going to want to chase his dreams and chase the NFL possibility. And he kind of is one of those players that, at least in my opinion, was sort of, you know, on the fence, at least to start. And now it's sort of like, okay, he could have a chance to be on an NFL team, but he's going to have an awesome season this year. So if he's thinking about it just from an individualistic standpoint, yeah, I guess there are teams that would maybe be more well-suited for him, and he can get more touches, and he can show off what he's capable of more. On the other hand, is it fair to say that in some way this is just a crock of BS? Like, you're the captain.
Yeah.
You are literally wide receiver 1. Don't tell me that Fran Brown is not absolutely stewing behind closed doors right now.
Yeah.
He made you his captain months ago. Loyalty means everything to him. And honestly, it would absolutely hurt me if I was Fran Brown to see this guy, a guy who had one Power 5 offer coming out of Syracuse, to turn his back on the team that gave so much to him for a couple of dollar signs and a better chance at the NFL. Like, it's not like he's not making any money. It's not like the money he's making is not life-changing. It's not like Syracuse doesn't have anything at all to offer him. And he knows that by leaving Syracuse as a collective team, now they're going to have to, whoever else they pick up, any wide receiver, is going to have to learn everything over again. But also, you know that by you not being there, the team is going to suffer without you. That's a real decision you need to make. And a legitimate group of people who are going to look at you differently for the rest of your life. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just the honest-to-God truth.
No, that is the honest-to-God truth, and that's why college football is just a mess right now, because it is a business. There's no other way to put it. It's a business. You can take all of what you just said, and I completely agree with all of it, and then you can also say, this is a guy that really we're not really sure if he's going to make the NFL. So if he has 1 year left to make as much money as possible, would I make as much money as possible if I knew my clock was on a 1 year countdown? Yeah, I might too. But I also completely agree that Fran Brown right now, I know he has to be unhappy. He values loyalty a lot. He does not like to be, I don't want to say publicly embarrassed. That's not, but that's how it feels. But he went out on a public, dart party, NIL event, named him his captain a couple months ago. This is what happens. Not to mention, it's tremendously late. It's mid-April. The season and fall camp starts in August. So there had to be something here, and maybe it will come to light in the next few weeks.
Oh, the truth
that really
always comes
pushed him
out.
over the edge.
We'll
I
find
just
out what
wanted
it
to
was.
also share an interesting observation. This is completely random, and I don't even know where my motivation for shooting this was, but I noticed today when I was going back through some footage from the weekend that we actually were able to tour the new SU football facility and the locker room. And alongside that, I noticed that all the players had their goals pinned up outside their lockers. And I just want to let everybody know I was not doing anything wrong during this. We were able to film all of it, film the locker room, and I noticed Trebor Peña's goal list. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. As the captain of the team, maybe I am interested in what Trebor Peña's goals are for the upcoming season. So I took a video of it. And he had listed, it's nothing like too personal, it's all football related. You know, it was like a 1 year, 6 months, 1 month time frame, like short term, sort of more long term. His 1 year goals were All-ACC first team, ACC champions, first to third round pick, 6 months, best shape of my life, knowing the playbook, and then listed as growing my money and helping my family, and 1 month kind of becoming a better leader. So that was just interesting. I don't even know what made me have the motivation to take a look at that, but I guess just looking around the locker room. It's tough. It's a tough draw. It's tough that we don't get to hear Fran Brown, and it's tough that the school, I don't blame the school for not commenting on it. You're not going to comment on each individual player leaving, the same as they're not going to comment on Johnson Jr., but this one just does feel bigger, and it feels like Fran would have something to say about it, one way or the other. Maybe Fran would get up there and say, look, you know, I don't know, maybe he would sort of not make excuses for it because he doesn't do that, but I guess try to protect Peña in a way. Maybe there were some understanding conversations. Just with the way that everything went down, I tend to be speculative of that.
I'm sure he's pissed about it, but I actually kind of agree with you. I could see him getting up there and essentially being like, hey, players leave and players stay. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to go for the next player now. Like that. And that's what must be just so hard. I see it from all sides, but it is a tough situation thinking about the fact that I really do feel like Fran Brown, and I'm sure a lot of other coaches, but Fran Brown in particular is someone who really puts like his blood, sweat, and tears into this program, into building it up, into making it a program that players want to be around, you know what I mean, with the financial literacy and the keeping your money and whatever it is. It must be a hard feeling to feel like you can offer somebody all of that on a platter and they can still look at it and say, that's not enough, you know?
Yeah.
And it's nothing that you really did. It's just the fact that somebody else had something a little bit better to offer.
And this is Fran Brown's first real experience with that. Like I said before, he last offseason was able to bring in the likes of Kyle McCord, a Fidel Diggs from an SEC school. He was able to keep a guy like a Rondé Gadsden who could have went into the transfer portal and made a lot of money. He was able to retain and get players from high-level programs. Not to say he hasn't done the same in the second offseason, because he has had some incoming from those same level of programs, but this is his first real experience of the harsh reality that Syracuse is an ACC school that is just at the end of the day going to reach a limit on some of these negotiations, and we are not privy to what that limit is, but there clearly is one.
There is a limit. Because if there was not a limit, then I think you would potentially be seeing a different outcome here. But not to mention, that's what makes the situation so hard, is that because there's a limit, then you can't get great players. And because you can't get great players, then the players on your team want to leave because they want to be with the great players. Yeah. And the cycle just continues and continues. How, if you're one of the schools that has a great head coach and a strong direction and good leadership, but a cap on how much you can spend, how do you ever become great?
Yeah.
Is it possible? Really? You know? Like, to me, I feel like that is the best that the best show he could have put on, you know? Mm-hmm. The best he possibly could have offered. And if that's not enough for the person you named a captain,
it's tough.
Who is it good enough for?
Yeah.
And how do you ever compete with the best of the best? I don't even know if you can.
Fran Brown's going to have to try to answer that question. Just some kind of closing thoughts. Obviously, we're saying it'll be interesting to see how Fran reacts when he eventually does. There is no more media availability guaranteed with Fran Brown until August and fall camp. I am next to certain that, you know, there'll be something this summer with, you know, just out in the community or whatnot, but there's nothing guaranteed football-wise until that time period. So it'll be interesting to see when we finally get the answer. You know, any NIL money that Trebor was getting is now freed up if it wasn't exclusive to him, which sometimes it is with the donors and whatnot. But if it was more just towards the greater pool, then of course you're freeing up that NIL money. And I know nobody wants to hear the positive side of this right now because it feels like there is none, but wide receiver is actually the last area that Syracuse really has to be concerned about headed into this upcoming season. You can really say it's the deepest position group on the team. So if some of that NIL money can be used to get, say, a linebacker, a corner, some of those defensive groups that are weaker headed into this season, then maybe that is beneficial to you. You have returning for the wide receivers guys like Darryl Gill, Justice Ross Simmons, Hatcher. We saw Jalen Hornsby and Emmanuel Ross really impress in the spring game. And even like a Tyshawn Russell, Darius Johnson, we saw them out there. So it's certainly one of the deeper groups. Who do you kind of put in that Peña position to replace him, like in the slot, like automatic target number 1 just to get some yardage? I'm not exactly sure right now. I guess we'll have to see.
I guess I'll just take the negative final thought then, since the positive one was already taken. Man, I get it. I get every part of it. It's life-changing money. It's money that could set you and your kids up and your future up. And maybe it is a chance at the NFL. And it's an individual goal. But something just doesn't sit right with me about the fact that before last season, the average general fan didn't really even know who Peña was. Like, it really was that big of a jump in 1 year where he became one of the guys. And now the second that you see success, you're looking for something better. Just hurts my heart. And I get why he did it. Just doesn't feel right to me. That's all I have to say. Thanks everybody so much for joining us. We'll see you back here when the next big thing happens.